So, hey everyone, happy Friday. It will officially be intro time in just a little bit. But as we are just saying in the spinny logo portion of this show, you couldn't hear, about like how much better X engagement is than like straight on YouTube and stuff. Part of it because people are there. And I was just sort of getting into a rant about, or mini discussion about, I don't think Elon's perfect or his vision's perfect, but mostly he seems to be going for the things that I made a video on this channel a few years ago about why social media sucks and how to fix it. And he's like an 8 out of 10 as far as like my recommendations. So that's good. One thing is the whole monetization thing of like putting native money, kind of like, Nostr or whatever does with like the Zaps in thing, like where you should be like wherever we're hanging out with people is where we should be able to send money to each other. In my opinion, it just makes sense, and it is super like in a little bit of a goofy slash dark story on this. There was some fellow who was a New Hampshire state representative who apparently was like illegally selling cannabis to other members of the legislature, and someone who I unfortunately also ended up knowing was like paying him over Facebook Messenger with like which is like can you imagine using Facebook Messenger to like buy, illegal substances? It's just like, oh my gosh, like how dumb could you be? But the point is, you're on Facebook, you see that guy, you like his post, and then message him, hey, got any grass? It's like, it just, the user experience, the closer it all is to the same thing, the more it'll happen. So that's what I think about X monetization. The more people are just, if people are just shit posting every day there, that's where they should consume content, and that's where they should monetize content, all the same spot.
I agree. I mean, what do you think of Telegram doing what they're doing?
Well, which thing are they doing?
I think you're going to be able to monetize. They're putting it on the blockchain. They're going to do ad revenue for groups, all that kind of stuff. I mean, most of crypto's where? Mostly Twitter and Telegram, would you say?
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. Like Twitter runs crypto, kind of. I would say that's like the number one place. It's always been CT for crypto. Twitter has been a thing forever. But as far as where I communicate with people, crypto people in the U.S. I find are very heavy on Signal, especially the privacy cypherpunk people. And then Europe and like Asia, it's all Telegram. And then it's just like the equator line south is like all like WhatsApp. And it's just I just downloaded WhatsApp for the other day to do business with someone in Dubai for some sponsorship thing. It's like, oh, get his WhatsApp. Here's his WhatsApp. I'm like, can we use something else like email, like a civilized human being? It's like, nope, WhatsApp. And then everyone else, Telegram. I don't like Telegram. I don't like WhatsApp. I like Signal. I like Twitter, and I like email. But the market has spoken. I am wrong.
Surprise, no session. Maybe it's just not popular enough yet.
Nah, it's not. I don't think. There were some issues with session, I guess, but I'm sure it's better than nothing,
Yeah.
Let me see. How many people are watching right now? Is it enough to... Yeah, 7 people watching. No one's commented yet. We'll fix that in a second. But what do you think? Is it roll the intro time here?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Intro time, go. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday, officially. Welcome to the Digital Cash Rundown, episode 158. It's 158 weeks in a row, pretty much, I've been doing this, although I've skipped a couple for travel reasons, so probably like 165 or so weeks. But yeah, 158. Long time. I'm joined by
Congrats.
Thanks. I'm joined by the one and only Crypto Lush. How's it going, man?
Good. Good.
Yeah. Thanks, by the way, for having me on your show not too long ago.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I got great feedback on that. I think a lot of people want to use crypto for payments that just don't even know where to start. And honestly, I still have a little bit of some things to get over, like how to get that email, the phone number, to probably be able to use Bit Refill and then the gift cards. It seems like even after we did that, still seems like there's a couple hurdles that I still need to mentally clear. So I can only imagine how hard that's going to be for some real normies, you know?
Yeah, I think for a super normie, if you just want to get them to where they self custody all their money in crypto and then spend from there, it's not very hard. But then they have to make some trade offs that they don't want to make because they want to be cypherpunk with their crypto. And it's just like, okay, if you want to be real cypherpunk with your crypto, you gotta like go to like ninja training camp. Like this isn't easy. It's not. You have to then start being like, okay, now first off, get a new SIM card that's like not tied to. You never use that phone number, so you can't get SIM swapped. You gotta get this VoIP number. Here's this VoIP number per thingy. Then you gotta sign up for something like Proton Mail, and then simple login for the email aliases. So when you sign up with aliases, it's not tied to your identity. You get all that. Oh, by the way, you need a VPN. Your device should probably run on Graphene. Let's get it on Graphene, and then like all these thingies, and then sandbox the Google Play service in a separate profile if you absolutely need to for this and that. And then, okay, now you start getting crypto. By the way, you can't just sign up and buy with a credit card now because then you did all this hard work to be doxxed. So now you got to do P2P and hope you're not buying from a Fed. And then, oh, wait, why don't you earn from somewhere? Okay, now you can't really use the KYC services for like the easy bill pay. You got to do. That's when it gets super complicated, is that whole path. But just like normie, holding their own funds and holding it in non-USD is not super hard. Just everything else is like the super hard part.
Yeah. It seems like a great opportunity to create a guide on that. I might I'm going to rewatch this video and then start maybe putting resources together for everything you just said. Because that sounded like it was right off the top of your head. And that for me would have been digging in probably like 6 different spots to try to figure that out. So
yeah, I've been meaning to do. I did this video last year called "How to Live on Crypto," updated for 2023, and a couple things are. It's very much the stuff I went over with you, but a couple of the stuff have changed a little bit. Like 3 months after I did it, like 2 of the services like went bust or whatever. So and some things changed. So it's like, oh, I have to do another one. But at some point, I do want to do a how to live like privately on crypto, which a lot of people expressed opinions like great interest in. And there's still a couple of things I'd like to like figure out before I fully do that. I'm like a 95% ready to do that video, but like
cool.
A couple of things.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's launch into stuff then, huh? Let me hit the news thing. Let me first hit on Coin ATM Radar because they've been kind enough to throw me a bag. So this podcast is sponsored by Coin ATM Radar. When buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable and safer than meeting some random person in a random place, which is the time-tested way to meet a Fed.com or whatever. and unlike an exchange which could freeze your account, you truly own all the crypto you buy. With Coin ATM Radar, you can find crypto ATMs and other services where you can buy or sell cryptocurrencies for cash. On their website, you can search by coin, address, if the ATM supports selling as well as buying. So for people like me who only have crypto, sometimes you need some fiat if you're traveling. And then you can also search by geo area, like country, city, state, etc. And you can check and compare actual current fees at different ATMs. Find out more, go to coinatmradar.com or coinatmradar.com. And if you follow Coin ATM Radar on X, they're what one could call hella based in in their stuff. They posted some spicy takes, which is I'm glad that there's like a philosophical alignment. It's not just like, hey, these people were the only ones that take pity enough on me and my financial plight to throw me a bag. It's like, no, they're actually like, we agree on stuff. So okay, apparently there was no sound on Odysee, so I just reset that, huh? Wonder how many times that's going to happen this week. Anyway, let's launch into the bad news part, or the whatever. So, I'm highlighting my tweet because it got a lot of views, but also, nice. So Samourai Wallet, a Bitcoin privacy service, has been shut down as founders arrested, and so you can go read this entire post at some future date. But basically, Samourai Wallet was a non-custodial wallet that connected with something called Whirlpool, which is a also non-custodial CoinJoin feature for Bitcoin. So for those who, everyone watching this probably knows what CoinJoin is, but if not, it's just like you break up, you take your wad of crypto and like 5 other people, and then you just swap the bits for each other so that when you just have the same old amount in the end, whenever you send, you can't see really, you can't, it's hard to figure out where it came from, that it was from you. They call that breaking the transaction graph, where, you know, this graph of this from here to here, this breaks it. So basically privacy on Bitcoin. And they got arrested. They were supposedly, so it's because they were running a business out of this, and they were making money from this. They were also basically, the allegations are for like laundering, which laundering is a fiat world term. I don't really buy it anyway. But the point on that is, they were taking, in some cases, criminals' money or sanction evaders or whatever, and making them anonymous or harder to trace. And so the big thing, in my opinion, is really tough to tell, but the big thing in my opinion is they made a business doing this. They ran the infrastructure, and they bragged about this stuff on Twitter.
Yeah.
Which, that's just, you know, it's like, it just makes your legal case very difficult at that point, right? Where you say you were trying to facilitate law breaking. And I don't think they did anything wrong, morally, at all. And also legally, according to actual like U.S. law, I'm not sure they did anything illegal, really. But then, just because of the whole non-custodial nature of things, the fact that they didn't actually mix anyone's funds, they just provided open source infrastructure for people to connect with each other. But that whole open source non-custodial loophole doesn't seem to be working anymore if you have a company that profits from this, and you know that people are using the service for certain things, and you don't do anything to stop them, which you can't really do anything to stop them other than just shutting down your business. But there you go. Anyway, that's my little rant. What do you want to say?
I agree with you. I think the key is that if you write the code for something like this, you cannot participate in running the actual infrastructure, because then they might be able to say that you created it with the intent of something, especially if you're getting paid off of it in some way. And I don't even know if that includes running a node. Like if you write, like you're talking about the infrastructure, if you write the code and then you run a node for that service, that might be enough. And then it didn't help that they bragged. I don't think they'll probably use that, to scare people.
Yeah. The big thing is sort of admitting, like, even if, let's just say you write open source code and that's all you do, but then you go all over Twitter and say, sanction avoiders are more than welcome to use our service. Screw the feds. In fact, here's how to do it. Even if you don't run the infra, even if you don't run the wallets, even if you don't make any money, that might be enough to be like, look, these guys are encouraging illegal activity and providing the tools for that, even though they just wrote open source code. So that's something you do not want to do. And like, listen, I get that a lot of like brand, it's like you want to be based on X and stuff. Like, Monero's for criminals. But like, dude, don't say that unless you want to go to prison. Like, just don't say it. You can say it in private. Maybe. Don't even do
it's
that.
Like a
just
hobby, right? What are they going to do? Arrest me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
you have to be smart about the optics of the whole thing, because there's, for sure, they don't want privacy. They don't want self-custody. I don't think anyone can really argue that at this point.
Yes. And like, as I've said a billion times before, taxation is theft. That being said, you know what happens when you don't pay taxes. And I'm never going to tell people, yeah, you should stop paying. No, I'm not going to tell you to do that. In fact, I'm going to encourage you to do the opposite, as much as people might say all kinds of mean, hurtful things on Twitter about me for saying you should probably pay taxes. I think you should, because I think that people should remain as free as possible. And even though you're not fully free, if you're a taxpayer, you're more free than if you are a jailbird. So
Yeah.
just saying, take your
Don't want an excuse.
if you take risks, those should be yours to make. And I don't want any personal responsibility for like encouraging you to ruin your life. So I'm not going to do that. Now, as far as just the infra split you're talking about, I think that's a good idea. And it's when there's a few different things going on in a service like this. So you have someone who writes open source code. You have someone who runs the underlying infrastructure, which includes Bitcoin miners, I guess. But for this specific thing, it's like the node that the server that runs this. Very interestingly enough, they were just in the process of decentralizing the coordinating node thing. Like I saw something about that in the last month, I believe, and I was like, "Huh, interesting." So maybe that's why they decided to get him then.
Right. Yeah,
just get him before that happens. The third thing is like the profit from it. You just don't want to like have a business that then apparently some people are accusing Vlad Kostia, the guy who had my podcast a while back, of doxing them. But he shared a CoinDesk article about them raising funds for like an investment round in Samourai Wallet, which included their names and stuff in it. So to be clear, as far as I'm aware, Vlad did nothing about that, but they also sort of self-doxed when they like fundraised like a year and a half ago or something. So like, I don't know, don't do that either. It's not smart if you're, you know.
I mean, isn't everybody kind of doxed to the intel agencies? I even wonder about that through Twitter. You know, people have anonymous Twitter accounts, but I'm like, often I'm like, unless you're doing a lot of stuff in the back end, you know, using a VPN, never using your phone number. I just don't know. I just assume that the intel agencies know who you are if you're posting on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they know who you are, in my opinion, and you know, my guess is rather, if they are looking for you, they could probably figure it out. But so from just the story of like Ross Ulbricht in the Silk Road, he did a really good job for the most part of covering his tracks, and no one really had any idea who he was for the longest time. And it was supposedly, from what I've heard, again, people much more familiar with the case can let me know, but some like a random citizen sleuth kind of who made some connections with some childhood like email address or something like that kind of like got that first nugget of knowledge and then like ratted on him. And then when the feds had that first breadcrumb, then they started like looking until they you know supposedly got him in the library or whatever. Again, there's a lot of murkiness in there, but the point is the Samourai people, I think they could have found a way to be completely anonymous. It just, everything I've seen that the DOJ's been sharing is just like, they said this, they said that, you know, in this chat with this, they said this and that, and then their names were public. So I don't think they needed to do all that like Snowden level NSA stuff to like figure that out. But the point is, as you were saying about like those, you know, those things, and so collecting money, and the money seems to be what tripped them up, although maybe they were doxxed before then, I don't know. And then like running the actual front end interface. And so no party, like the front end interface person should be just like some weird anon dude in like some, you know, like Belarus or something like that. I don't know, some country out that way. And everyone else should just have no knowledge of illegal activity or the ability to stop the illegal activity. And so this kind of circles back to the Tornado Cash thing, which was a much worse case in my view. I think the Samourai wallet got a lot more galvanizing support, but I think that was a little bit a clear vulnerability for people to come after. Whereas Tornado Cash, yes, they did it. There were known people who did like a VC fund thing. They wrote the open source code, they ran the front end, and they deployed the smart contract. However, once they deployed the smart contract, it's not in their hands anymore. They can't even shut it down. And Tornado Cash is still operating to this day because it's a contract and anyone can use it, right? Now, from my understanding, when they started to figure out about, illegal activity or sanctions evaders or whatever started to use the service, on the website, the front end that they ran, they started implementing some like filtering for transactions or like to block certain things. But it's just like because they just did everything and they had knowledge of it, and like they were still getting money from the contract, from the immutable contract, that was like enough. But it's still, that one's a horrible precedent. The Samurai one's a bad one, but not as bad as this. But so yeah, just I think that you just sort of have to have a different party doing a different piece of everything, and as zero knowledge as possible as far as like who's using the service.
I mean, is there a way to build front ends and host them completely anonymously, or is that just not a way? It's just not possible.
Depends on the front end. You can create like APK builds in a GitHub where anyone with an Android or Graphene or whatever phone can just download like an app and just trust the code there, or they can just build the app themselves, and then there you go. Like that's the kind of thing. But as far as like a web thing where you go to a website and log in, as far as I know, you can't. However, Chad Bareford, who's quite the Chad, he's cool dude, been on the show a few times. The more or less head Thorchain guy, which is, it's not technically accurate, but it's practically accurate, right? He's one of the more prominent developers who's kind of the spirit behind the project. He has a side project called Arkeo, Arkeo, which would turn front ends into like a smart contract to where they're deployed and they're just out and they can't be taken down. And I don't know very much about the project. I think it's new. But yeah, that would be awesome if it works out that way, and then we can stop all this nonsense.
Yeah, so I think that's probably one of the last.
Mm-hmm.
Right, if they can get. I know though, there's another Dex though. Like, have you heard of Asgard X? I think this is what you were talking about. Like, you can. There's apps that exist. Like, you can just download them as an app, a desktop app, so you don't have to rely on connecting to a web browser.
Or compile it yourself and then run it. That's even the other step. The other trustless step that like all the nerds are like, did you check the builds yourself? And I'm like, listen, I'm going to figure out whoever has the executable file that I trust the most. I'm just going to run it. I'm sorry. It's like, that's my cypherpunk ceiling is right there. It's like, I'm not going
to run that too.
I have, honestly, the plugin that I am streaming to Odysee on through OBS right now, I did actually build myself because they did not have a Linux build for it, and I just had to get it in here somewhere. And honestly, I don't know how I did it. Even 5 minutes after I did it, I just started dragging and dropping files in and like running random scripts I saw online in the terminal until finally something worked. So before you think, oh man, he compiled it. No, I accidentally did it on my. But on this, Snowden chimed in on this thing, which is, how it's a serious thing. So it's been getting very spicy on Twitter these days. By the way, I guess he's been his days of being just like super meek. I didn't nothing wrong. All this. Now he's just like, whatever. He says the Department of Justice has once again criminalized the developers of an app that restores financial privacy. The way to fix this is to make money private by default. Privacy must never be exceptional, or they will make it criminal.
Right. So what do you think then about opt-in privacy chains then?
Yeah, that's
based on his take.
Default and forced are also different things. This principle is something, by the way, I agree with. I would say 100% or 90% or something like that. The nuance gets, so first of all, crypto is permissionless and pseudonymous. Some would argue that that's private by default. Okay, maybe. Especially if you get like a new address every time. Private by default is, and it's just like, it gets you start to think, what is default? What does default mean? And like what is in what I would consider default to be is the expected user experience or the expected thing. Is in it starts at this, and if you want to deviate from the default, that has to be a conscious, explicit decision. So in that case, so like for example, Zcash is a great example of this because Zcash, in order to just get listed and get out there, they launched with transparent addresses as the typical, as the default, I guess. And I remember a friend of mine, he made probably the first in-store purchase with shielded Zcash back in 2015 or 16 or whenever it was. And then he had a laptop with a command line and he generated the transaction in the shop. It took like 10 minutes to generate the cryptographic proof to set. I mean, like obviously that was not ready to be default, right? And then since then you had Sapling, which allowed mobile devices to generate their own proofs. And then Orchard took away the trusted setup. And so Zcash is like super advanced today. So if you download, say, the Zashi wallet or the Edge wallet, which has shielded Zcash in there, it just has, it's not as smooth as like a, let's just say a Dash or a Litecoin on, just default, whatever, but it's still very smooth. It's like, I would say comparable to like a Monero transaction for the most part, as far as you just send it and it kind of works. And so, Edge does not have a mode for transparent Zcash, for example. They only have shielded. And obviously you can send to a transparent address from there. Now, this is a very interesting thing because I'm kind of in the middle of a lot of this because I do believe that having so privacy is a choice, right? Privacy is choice. Is in privacy doesn't mean no revealed information. Privacy means you only reveal with your consent. So, for example, if only privacy is just like, okay, you're gonna go sleep and shower with your clothes on too. Like, come on. Sometimes you gotta be able to selectively not have that privacy in certain circumstances with certain people. It's your choice. You should be able to open your windows to let sunlight in and wave at your neighbor if you want, but you should also have the choice to not have that. And on just a less philosophical and a more technical level, transparent addresses offer a couple of things. First of all, if you have like a government or nonprofit or something, like as far as I know, Nayib Bukele, the Salvadoran dictator, president, whatever, has posted publicly the Bitcoin address of the country's Bitcoin holdings. And I think that's really, like, I've been a big critic of the dude for obvious reasons, but I think that's a really cool move to be like, here you go, full transparency. You can't do that, as far as I know, with something like Monero and like a nonprofit or whatever. Now, the thing is, this is where it gets into the exchange address thing, because a bunch of exchanges are, delisted or threatened to delist privacy coins, including Binance globally. And the Firo team came up with this, and then Zcash and Pivx and some others, something called an exchange-only address, which only can receive from a transparent address. That way, every exchange can prove origins of funds. They're like, we got a deposit from this guy. It came from here, and he signed that he owns that address. And that one hop is enough to like get the feds off their back, allegedly. I guess we'll really see over the rest of this year how that plays out. But so the point is, if you wanted, you cannot do that technically with something like Monero, from my understanding. Again, someone who's more technological in this can please chime in. But as far as I know, you can't do that with Monero. You would have to give them your view key, which would reveal all your previous transactions, not just one hop, but everything. And that's, who the hell's going to do that? That's like literally, that's like, instead of being able to push down your sunglasses to show your eyes, that's like you have to strip. And it's like, no, I'd like to just be able to do this, and then that's it. And that's kind of where that's at.
And I even wonder too, this is why like I'm not a big fan of stable coins, because right now, if you wanted to, I think the way that Monero is mostly used, if you don't spend it directly, is that you would swap it for something like USDT or USDC or Dash or whatever, or Bitcoin, and then you're private because now you're into a public, a transparent coin, and that's fine. But I just wonder, at what point are they gonna freeze all the USDC in place?
They can.
Right?
That's the
And then you
problem
have
is they can't.
right, and then you have a self custody wallet, and they're like, well, those are illegal anyway. First, you make those illegal, and then you say, well, those are illegal, and we're going to freeze the USDC. And then it's like, well, if you have $500,000 in stable coins, and now you have to KYC it all, but you were trying to hold that privately, like cash under your mattress or something, then you're just going to be completely revealed right off the bat, which could pose problems for some people.
Yeah, that's why algorithmic stablecoins are probably the future, but they're just so freaking tough to get right. And I would not. Was
Like,
that?
what would be your favorite non-fiat backed stablecoin if you had to pick one? It's tough.
Well, I could tell you something that technically exists, but you can't use it, which is Tor, or the Thorchain stablecoin that's used as for the lending protocol because of the way it kind of works. Ultimately, I do think that you'd have to have like you have to have a stable. Here's a big problem with Terra Luna, especially. Is first of all, I mean, obviously the situation got out of hand where the UST market cap was past the Luna market cap. So therefore, you just had nothing. If everyone redeemed it and there was no price movement, then like Luna, there would not be enough Luna value to give everyone their value back.
Basically, just means insolvent, right?
Yes, but even you can even have a cascading effect if it was solvent. In my opinion, I would not trust any stablecoin that is not redeemable for an exogenous asset that for the end user that's backing it. So like let's just say you have like $1 million in a stablecoin. You'd have to have $3 million in, let's just say, Bitcoin behind that, like backing it. And you at any time the end user should be able to redeem $5 of this thing for $5 equivalent of actual Bitcoin, real on-chain L1 Bitcoin. And that way, the worst that can end, the only way you keep that from getting insolvent is you'd have like a refund clause type thing, where if it ever becomes insolvent, everyone's stablecoin gets burned and they get sent their refund in Bitcoin. And so like the worst that can happen is then the value of the Bitcoin they get, like say you have $100 and you get like $100 worth of Bitcoin, but by the time you can move it, it's worth like 80 or 70 or 60. But like that's the worst. You still get the real. At that point, that's like not the protocol's problem anymore. It's not like the stablecoin protocol rugged you. It's just like, whoops, sorry, here you go.
Yeah. Didn't work. We're gonna try again.
I think that's the best you can do, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think like I do like I just looked at Silk. Are you familiar with that one? It's over on the Secret Network.
I've heard it mentioned. I haven't not actually familiar with it.
It's got like $4 million market cap, similar to Jed over on Cardano. It's also over collateralized. I'm not sure about that design really either, but Silk was similar where it was a Silk shade, just like Luna UST, but they threw that away. So now they have it backed by Shade. Like it's over collateralized. But now, in order for you to mint new stable coins, you have to borrow against assets. So similar to what you just said, you'd have to borrow, but then there's a liquidation in there. So you're paying 2%. That might be something that works, but I don't know that will ever scale high enough for some real like massive adoption,
Yeah, it's really tough. Ultimately, I don't like the idea of stablecoins as anything more than a temporary measure because stablecoins are basically telling the market this is what this is worth, when the free market should just tell you what it's worth. And you're saying no, it's price fixing kind of. It's like a price fixing mechanism sort of, which in a free market doesn't really work, but it's like through these mechanisms, it's a temporary solution. So right now it's either have some weird risky algorithmic thing that could go kaboom, and I don't know if you trust it, or have a basically Fiat 2.0 kind of token that's not regulated yet, that they kind of use by the grace of Tether, And it's like pick your poison between those, or 3, deal with volatility of native crypto assets. and or 4, a mixture of all of them. So
Yeah, I think
that's
that's
kind of
probably.
where we're at. I did have a comment on Odyssey. Let me just read that about the Samurai thing. He says, sadly though, as a former Samurai user, I could already tell this was happening due to the direction Bitcoin is going, and I know it's nowhere good. But I admire people like Roger Ver and others working on drive chains to try to bring BTC back to its intended purpose. Yeah, well, good. So I'm sorry, former Samurai user, for not being able to Samurai anymore. Pour one out for the homies. Speaking of homies to pour one out for, let's touch on Phoenix real quick. Which is the only Lightning wallet I've used at any regularity or recency. So, Phoenix Wallet says on May 3rd, 2024, Phoenix Wallet will be removed from U.S. app stores. Users in the U.S. should empty their wallet. Settings, close channels for Android. Settings, drain wallet on iOS. Hopefully, they could also like send to a different Lightning wallet too. But says we highly recommend and not force closing channels as on-chain fees could be significant. Yeah, because if you do force close, like say you have like $500 of Bitcoin in there, you force close, you could spend like $200 in fees or something crazy. In not because and the worst part is you cannot your funds would be locked up for about 2 weeks too. You couldn't move it. That's part of like the way the Lightning Network works, where it's a non-cooperative close is what they call that. And so they just like lock the funds for like 2 weeks to make sure someone can't steal or whatever, and then incur a massive on-chain fee. So yeah, that's tough. So don't do that. Just manually close. You're still going to incur some fees, right? If you have $150 whatever in Phoenix, you're not going to get quite that out for sure, unless you just send it to somewhere else. But anyway, yeah, the whole money transmitter thing really hit hard, huh?
Yeah, I experimented with Lightning Wallet. I've tried 2 of them, but this was months ago now. I tried Breeze and the
Mm-hmm.
Moon Wallet, which I think are both self custody wallets. Those are the only I just experimented with it. I personally did not have any issues with it. And then I did also experiment with Wallet of Satoshi, but I know that one is custodial for
Did
sure.
you hit a VPN or something? Because they block US users for using that.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah, I was
Feds,
in
get
another
this
country.
man.
I was out of the country.
Well, there you go.
I
So,
mean, it was an experiment there. I did not know that. So because I did see that Seth for Privacy mentioned Zeus Lightning, and then he
yeah.
mentioned one other one. I think maybe no, not Phoenix. What's the other one?
Let
Phoenix is
me
something else.
let me
I thought
see
there were
what.
way more options.
Let me see. Not really. Let's see what he said. Um,
I mean, that's terrible if that's the case. You can't just do if you're in a Lightning wallet, you can't just close and just send it to a Bitcoin normal address to just have
yeah.
it go on the chain.
You can do that through Phoenix. That just closes your channel and sends it there. But again, on-chain transactions. Well, I can't quickly off the top of my head find the thing he's talking about. But Breeze is analogous to Phoenix, so probably in that it's a whatever self-custodial Lightning is, which is it's never truly self-custodial fully, but it's mostly. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Breeze shuts down in the US too, or like stops doing that. Maybe it won't because Phoenix is hardwired into the async node. So basically, async is a money transmitter, and they'd have to get a license in the U.S. Whereas Breeze, I think they do a little bit of that, but also you can open your own channels. It's like a very it's an actual full Lightning node, but a stripped down version. So Breeze, you might be able to just like do the awful user experience of real Lightning, and still keep it in. They just might not be able to do the routing stuff for you in the US. Now, Moon is not a Lightning wallet. Moon is a on-chain wallet that does, submarine swaps or whatever out to a Lightning payment. So
Oh,
literally, you send from your non-custodial L1 Bitcoin wallet, pay those L1 fees, like $4 or $10 or whatever it is today, and then it just like sends to Lightning in the back end. So it's basically a LARP. It's a LARP wallet. It allows you to pretend you're using Lightning when you should just use freaking on-chain Bitcoin.
Right. Huh. Well, then Lightning, I mean, yeah, because that was my experience. It was like, well, I see usually on my Twitter, it looks like Lightning Network is junk. I don't really see many positives. I do see people mostly where it seems to be successful is places like El Salvador, or where they're at a merchant doing obviously a video and they're recording it. And they're like, yeah, they just bought coffee with their Lightning wallet. But I think that might
Always
be
wallet of
the
Satoshi.
Shiba wallet.
Well,
In El Salvador,
Chivo
I
just
think
got
it's
hacked and they leaked all their customers' KYC info. So like the whole country of El Salvador basically got like identity thefted or whatever. But yeah, it's always some custodial type thing. Where Lightning makes sense is for a institution to institution settlement or custodian to custodian settlement. And so, for example, where I think it would work best is if I have a Kraken account and I want to, a Kraken offers very low fee swaps to Coinbase and Binance. So if I'm a trader, I'm like, oh, I want to move my Bitcoin over there, and you move it to a completely different platform that obviously has separate pools of money. It's not they're not the same exchange. It's like free exchange to exchange transfers as a kind of a benefit, so you could do arbitrage or whatever else. That, or also like an exchange offering Lightning withdrawals, so you can dollar cost average ish. So instead of like every quarter buying like a few grand in Bitcoin and moving it off platform, so you have all that custodial risk the whole time.
Right.
They have a Lightning channel to you, and you just buy into through Lightning, like say daily, transfer in, and it's still like mixed custody right between you and the exchange, and you just can close the channel quarterly or whatever and like actually take custody of the full fees as something like that. There's a little use cases like that where it makes sense, but like the whole peer-to-peer thing is kind of a LARP at this point. It's not really very good for that.
So Bitcoin is officially dead as a means of
For the poors, yeah.
You're not gonna for the peasants.
Yes, for the povos.
That's how I feel about and I always get with Ethereum is essentially the same boat. Since I've been in crypto, I haven't really been able to pay the Ethereum fees.
Yeah.
Did that when I got in, but it was at the peak, so fees were like my first 5 DeFi transactions were on Ethereum, and I lost $400 because I didn't know what I was doing with the gas fees, and I was like, okay, I'm leaving, and I just kind of haven't gone back really.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
that makes sense.
Thing Ethereum, they got the L2s, but I mean that could be a different video.
Yeah, the trade-offs you have to make.
Layer 2s either.
Let me hit on what I said and then Paul real quick just to wrap up the Lightning thing. I just said this is really bad but expected about the Phoenix shutdown. This is LSPs, Lightning Service Providers, are money transmitters, and regulators are treating them as such because literally you share custody of funds with them, and you send them money and they send their money to the final recipient. That's how Lightning structurally works. So it's not like a node that just just sends your data to like the blockchain. They have a pool of their own money that they have to send off on the other end. That's literally how it works.
Then is Lightning really self-custody anyways? Is it possible to really be self-custody if you just said that they're...
I'd argue no. Like when you deposit liquidity into Thorchain, is that self-custody? What do you think?
I would say yes, because you're interacting with a smart contract, I suppose. But yeah, you're right. When you deposit, I think it goes into... I mean, I know when you do swaps, it's just vaults, and then the accounting they do in the middle. But I don't know.
Because some people split hairs on that. Because if you deposit into Thorchain liquidity, it goes into the pool. You don't have exclusive control over the funds in that pool. However, your private keys can trigger an automatic release to yourself. So it's like mostly self-custody. It's also like it's protocol-owned liquidity, right? Protocol-controlled funds. And it's an automated withdrawal, but then It's decentralized. There's no one counterparty. And it's murky as far as like, is it 100% self custody? But the thing is with Lightning, it's just you and the other party. It's not a whole protocol, and that controls this. And there are some strict rules as far as like who can withdraw what without incurring penalties. But it's not automated insofar as, I mean, I don't know. It's murky, but I would call it almost equivalent. So it's not 100% self custody for sure.
That's interesting. I never even thought about liquidity pools like this.
Yeah, it's not keys in your possession and only your possession, that only whoever possesses those keys can move those funds. Which in a proof of work system, by the way, I'm not a huge expert on proof of stake to like the extents of it and all that stuff, but in a proof of work system, that is like irreversible, as far as even if you 51% attack the network, they can just roll back time on your transactions and make it so that if you send it to an exchange now, you didn't send to an exchange. But they can't actually steal your money from your own keys, even if they have like most of the hash rate. So there's like levels of security and ownership in this whole crypto thing. So Paul's thing. Paul says, my take on this announcement, the U.S. is clearly trying to stifle crypto, but how to do that is hindered by existing laws. So that's pretty much the recap of the whole thing is the U.S. government is trying to stifle crypto, but they have legal restrictions to how they can do that. And then the sort of recap thing at the end, he says, short term, get officials in office that are pro-crypto. Like he said, he likes Robert Kennedy Jr. and John Deaton for Senate. He's his top of his list. He's long-term, make our industry hardened against attack. The best way to do that is to gain adoption. No, not number go up adoption, but actual utility, i.e. self-custody, private payments across traditional markets. An economy that depends on crypto won't shut down crypto. I don't disagree with that at all.
No. That's, I guess, yeah. Well, every time they do these attacks, it's just going to make people say, where do we need to? And it's kind of a bummer too, because jurisdictions are going to be changing their laws probably all the time over the next no matter where you go. You could go to this country and then a year later, it's possible that they're going to change it on you. So that's kind of tough. But we already mentioned anonymous web hosting. So hopefully Archeo solves some of that. I guess just being as private and anonymous as possible. Is that the way?
Yeah, I think so. And I have to say, some of the coolest stuff that's happened over my life cycle in crypto has been the advancement of zero knowledge privacy tech. And like in the old days, it was all like CoinJoin or like Monero, which is also a decoy model and stuff like that. And there were zero knowledge things, but they were like iffy. And it wasn't really until Zcash started pioneering this moon math crazy nonsense that it's really taken it's really taken off. And I'm seeing so many different projects now adopting zero knowledge cryptography or zero knowledge transactions to where you don't really have to have there's no data leakage really, other than, I put money into the shielded pool and then, you could see it goes into the shielded pool, but anything in the pool, it's just dark, completely nothing. And that's pretty cool.
That is awesome. I keep seeing, and I know that we're almost out of time here, but I keep seeing that Monero is about to have this full chain something
membership
proof. And they're saying as soon as that happens, the debate is over on the best privacy tech. But I will agree with you that I usually hear that Zcash has the tech.
Just not the adoption.
What Zcash is doing is these full chain membership proofs?
No. And so I have less than perfect knowledge on this. So if I see something that ends up being wrong, don't at me for spreading misinformation. But from my understanding, the way Monero works right now is there's like a ring size of something like 16. So when you send a transaction, it could be you or 16 others, like decoys or whatever else. And so when you had the recent spam attack on Monero, where now you have like a single attacker did 80 to 90% of the transactions on the network, now the practical ring size is very small, like just a few. And then if you're an exchange or whatever, you can kind of be like, oh, I know who that was, sort of. Obviously, you still hide amounts, right? You still don't know how much they're sending, and so that it's still very hard to trace. From my understanding, what Monero is going to with Seraphis is a kind of full membership proof thing, meaning instead of a 1 of 16, it could be 1 of the whole network, where now all the transactions, it's expanded to everyone, which is really good. It's fantastic. The only small caveat to that is it's still a decoy model where you still see all the transactions. You just don't know which one it is. And it's just super hard to find. It's going to be almost impossible to find out who it is. But it's not zero knowledge where if you look on a block explorer, you just look up a shielded Zcash or Firo transaction, there's just no data. It just, who to go to? Shielded. Where to go? Shielded. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or of a possibility. It's a semantic thing, but it still means, so if 95% of Zcash shielded transactions are all by an attacker, for example, it doesn't help you find out the ones that aren't, because they don't leak any data. Whereas still under Seraphis, from my understanding, and don't kill me if this is like, for real, don't kill me. But if there was there's some slight inaccuracies here, but I could, from my understanding with Seraphis, even if you had like 95, 98% of the transactions made by an attacker, it still does harm the privacy of the remaining people in a way that full zero knowledge proofs do not. So, or ZK snarks or whatever, the technical terms start to get weird and overlapping. Yeah. That's my understanding. Now, there's a lot of hype in Monero, a lot of claims, a lot of, in the early days of Monero, there was a lot of very dishonest people who were saying very dishonest things. Today, it's a much more holistic community as far as there's all kinds of people there. It's undeniably robust privacy tech. I just Zcash is the top of the pyramid for sure. And Firo also has, in my opinion, the technology that Firo uses, Lalentis Spark, is more complete privacy than Monero, even under Seraphis. Although obviously it's a tiny project, so it's a lot easier to find off-chain ways of doxing people, where it's just the one of the 5 people who has Binance accounts who buys Firo. It's even if all the transactions are hidden, it's you could start to figure out something. So it's a very nuanced subject, but basically that's it. Look on a block explorer, look on a Firo block explorer, look at Zcash, look at Monero, and just also look at a Bitcoin coin join or a Dash coin join or whatever. See what you can see. And it's, obviously not everyone's a super expert at analysis and stuff, but you should be able to be at least understand where this comes from.
Team. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, wrap up time. Shill o'clock. What do you want to shell?
Man, on the spot, I don't know. I mean, my favorite. You want to? I'll say my favorite layer 1. Not financial advice, obviously, but I really like Radix. And it's not a meme coin, so it's a layer 1. It's my favorite one. That's probably what I would say. Go check it out. If you read, they have a 7. It's like a 7-section sort of. This is how it works. If you read that, I feel like most people would also really like that one.
Mm-hmm. So I just put Radix up on the screen, and then the only other thing, oh wait, it's the wrong Radix.
I was about to say, yeah. I was
what's the actual
the ticker is XRD. It's Radix DLT.
XRD.
Yeah.
Okay, that's funny. Well, someone just got a random RadixDLT.com. Some random business got a random shout out on this podcast. Hit me up. Anyway, Radix Web3 the way it should be. There we go. That's the actual one. The square root little logo and stuff. All right, and then of course I get a shill. Twitter.com/CryptoLush_. I actually see in real time the podcast is the top post on here. A little bit of inception here, but I I'm always trying to get everyone to start. There's maxi derangement syndrome on there. The guy's a goofy guy. Yeah, so I've been trying to get everyone I can who's like a YouTuber to start, a crypto YouTuber who I like. The ones who suck can stay on YouTube. The ones I like, trying to get them to post more stuff on X because it's easier to grow, and it's going to be easier to monetize too, I think, in the future. So yeah, follow him on crypto lush underscore. Do you ever think of doing crypto underscore lush?
Yeah, I think I messed with both of them. I couldn't remember. I don't remember why I chose that one.
Yeah, well,
It used to be my name. Like I didn't even think about privacy that much back in the day. And then, but I mean, it's not like it's impossible to find me. Like I don't even. Is your name actually Joel? I don't know.
yes,
Okay.
it is. That is actually my full. It's most
Yeah.
of my name right there. But I go by the Desert Links for.
Right.
I started a blog back when I lived in Phoenix in the desert, and I wouldn't call it like the Desert Rat or something like that. And it turns out I was already taken, so I just picked Desert Links, and then it's just where it is. So this was the X handle was supposed to be for my blog to promote it on Twitter, as it was known back in the old days, and it just ended up being a thing. So now it's just like my pseudonym that no one ever wonders who's behind it, kind of thing. But it is good to not have your full name out there like right away, because
Right.
it doesn't mean you're hiding from anyone. But then like if people know your face, that's not enough for the average evil moron to just start Googling you and trying to find out where you live. It's like people like it gets rid of like that first thing of like nonsense. All right, so I'm going to start wrapping this up. Very much thank you for being on. This is a great one. I also enjoyed being on your show. I will, of course, I'm always ready to talk about more living on crypto stuff. Just today, someone messaged me or posted on X about how they're living like 90% on Monero in part because they saw some of the stuff I posted over the years. So that makes me happier than a viral post or getting invited to speak at conferences any day of the week. More people living on crypto is better. All right. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to run the Dash podcast next, which I do like once every month or so when I can find someone who wants to do it. And yeah, tune into that if you want to watch it. If not, whatever. So don't forget that taxation is theft. Your phone is spying on you. Fiat is a scam, and live on crypto before it is too late. See you guys in a couple minutes or next week. Bye-bye.